Hello, my name is Leslie Nutt. I've enjoyed grabbing my camera and heading over to Hudson Springs Park. When the pandemic hit, it became even more important to me. What I like so much about photographing Hudson Springs is that it is different at each visit depending on the light and the season. I took this on a very cold, snowy day. It is stark and bleak, but also calming. I especially like the light in winter and how it affects the snow. It ranges from a warmer golden color to an almost overly blue color depending on the time of day. I often set my white balance to daylight when I am shooting in the snow. I used my zoom lens for this shot. I have seen what I believe to be the same bird in this tree many times. I tried to lift the shadows to show some texture, but still have it be somewhat of a silhouette. I wanted to include this photo because it represented a sharp reminder of the shutdown during the pandemic. Normal life was suspended, and there were no answers as to when it would resume. I wanted to impart the feeling of isolation with this photo, but also the coming of spring. I surmise this goose was out looking for love. Life goes on during COVID. I caught this image of a gosling testing his courage while a sibling looked on. When I saw this rainbow, I grabbed my camera and drove to Hudson Springs. The spring green of the grass and trees and the saturated blue sky added to the beauty. I reduced the sharpening and increased the luminance in Lightroom. Hudson Springs Park has 50 acres of water. There are lots of ways to enjoy it. Boats are stored there for easy access. I love the colors, shapes, and sizes. I wanted the composition of this photo to have a feeling of depth. I took this image in August at about 7 p.m. It was golden hour. The setting sun provided contrast and shadows. I wanted to evoke the feeling of a carefree, peaceful, warm summer day. There are a lot of geese at Hudson Springs Park, so if you're taking a walk, keep your eyes open. The feathers caught my attention because it looked like they had just drifted down into the water. Because I wanted different lighting, I took my camera and tripod over to the park right after sunset. I caught the moon rising during blue hour. I have always loved the contrast between blue and orange, both in terms of color, but also the emotions they represent. The next 3 photographs were taken early one morning in October. I was especially fortunate to catch the morning fog. This photo still has the blue light of dawn. I pushed up the white slider a small amount in Lightroom to make the fog pop. I took this because the lone park bench and the fog inspired a tranquil feeling. I made the conscious decision to not clone out the discarded water bottle by the bench because beauty triumphs over indifference. I photographed this scene with intent on composition. I wanted the horizontal and vertical lines to intersect. I wanted a strong contrast between the black branches and the soft colors of the background scene. This image showcases the beautiful colors of fall. The light hitting the tops of the trees adds to the contrast. In this photograph, I wanted the boat to be extremely sharp. I used a higher f-stop and raised the ISO a stop so I could increase the shutter speed. This is my favorite photograph of the collection. The light was soft with an abundance of morning fog. The colors were mellow and subdued. There was a feeling of peacefulness. This photograph was taken approximately 15 minutes before the last image. It has a heavier feeling, but shares the same beautiful color palette. I took this image after an ice storm in November. To find the composition I wanted, I shot from various angles. I also knew I wanted a shallow depth of field. I was so glad I made the effort to go to the park despite the bad weather. The park was a popular place before the pandemic, but with the shutdown, it became even more so. I wanted to pay homage to the park itself, so I chose not to include photographs of people, with one exception.